Okay, wait. Actually, let me do. Oh, sorry. One more thing.
That's right.
One more thing. Okay, so I have 3 clips from YouTube that we're gonna watch, and so I guess we just set them up. What's the best way to do it? Should I just broadcast my screen, or how? Or do you want to play it on your computer?
No, you go ahead. Broadcast on your screen.
Okay, how do I do that again?
Go over to the side, and where you see like a little green screen share monitor. Do you see it over there on the left side? Scroll over it.
Yeah, screen share. Okay, cool. Right.
You ready?
Yes.
All right, man. This is exciting. All right. And it's another discussion with my good friend Ford Suze. My name is Judah McNeil, and this is Reverse Redaction. I was thinking about calling it RevDac. What do you think? I even like
RevDac. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I saw you do the RevDac. Yeah, I don't know. We'll probably just keep Reverse Redaction.
Okay.
I don't know. I have gotten into quite the abbreviation phase on the internet now, because it's like all my website idea names have already been taken, so it's just like one long TSVBABM, the surfing violinist building a better me. Oh, man.
Okay. Well, so today we are going to talk about, we're going to reverse redact, or at least we're going to go back and discover some new aspects to one of our favorite shows. Did you introduce it to me? Or we actually saw it together, I think, at the theater when it first came out.
Oh no, I missed the film in the theater. So I caught up with it way late. I remember reading the blurb for Serenity, in the paper, like the what do you call it, review, and I just remember thinking that looks dumb, because I saw a trailer and I was like, man, the trailer looked bad.
The same thing here. I was like, that looked. I think it was about the same time. Wasn't was it Underworld came out?
Yeah.
And I was thinking, oh, what another one of these cheesy like sci-fi genre movies. No, thank you.
Right. It felt like a sci-fi movie. That's what the trailer made it look like. I was like, they had this voiceover. I wish I could find the trailer. The voiceover that the guy did, it was like, from the brilliant mind of Joss Whedon, but the guy's voiceover was just not good.
It was so corny. It was corny.
They just made it seem like cheap or something. And when you watch Serenity, I mean, the effects are good. Like, they're fine. They hold up 10, 15 years later. So I don't know how they managed to make it look worse. And the movie just flopped. I mean, it got destroyed at the box office, from what I remember. But it has gone on to become my favorite film of all time, actually. Like, it has surpassed Star Wars for me. I mean, every time I watch it,
time out. We hadn't even said what movie it is. So
no, I did say it. I did say Serenity. Okay. So Serenity in the Firefly universe. And we go back and we watch the series over and over again. And no matter how many, not every single episode of Firefly was like perfect, but even the bad ones have great moments. Even the bad ones are better than any episode of Star Trek Discovery. So there's that.
Oh, interesting. Well, I haven't seen that yet, but I actually go back and I introduce it to a lot of I work with a lot of young men that with with certain difficulties, and a lot of them like sci-fi, like Star Trek, Star Wars, but they've never heard of Firefly. And I'm like, oh, no, we're not going anywhere till we start watching the show.
Right.
And yeah, I've introduced, like, I have some pretty some great memories of like watching people watch Firefly for the first time.
Definitely.
Now, I really don't think Serenity holds up on its own without Firefly. I'm just going to put that out there. Start.
Yeah, I do understand that. You know, the beginning is a bit, they have to rush so much in. I don't know. One of my favorite unbroken takes. I mean, people love, you know, Birdman was a whole unbroken take, and like not really it tried to be, purported to be. But like for me, the unbroken take that is my favorite is the first shot on Serenity and Serenity, and it's introducing every character. There is a masked cut in this take, but it's pretty seamless, and yeah. But I do understand I do understand people who do not like Firefly or Serenity because of its, you know, witty sort of, it is an artificial way of speaking. You know, it is kind of this witty.
There is kind of a corny
geeky,
aspect.
Yeah, this witty, geeky, meta, like air to it. And
but go ram it. I like it.
Yeah, definitely. And it's definitely Whedon. You know, I mean, it is so Whedon in terms of his dialogue and snappiness and all that stuff. But for me, it works. It is. I do understand it's not as mainstream palatable, I think, as the Star Wars, you know, would be, or, you know, the new iteration of Star Trek. But I think it is deeper than both, in my opinion. So
well, and it's got a great cast and crew. Nathan Fillion has continued to be, even though he hasn't really gone on to do anything, you know, hugely, you know, as influential as that for me. I didn't really get into Castle, although I kind of liked it. He has been continued to be one of my favorite actors. Just his personality as an actor, and I follow him on Twitter and he's just such a funny, good-natured guy,
and it was such a good mix of people. I think that's one of the
yeah.
I would like to say this, like I just said, that it was deeper than Star Wars or Star Trek, and what I mean by that is Star Wars is deep on a philosophical, quasi-religious level. Like it finds some things that tie a lot of worldviews from America to you know, from the West, not really America, but from the West to the East. And it comes out, it finds a universal place to like discuss philosophy. And so and a certain element of religion. Like, you know, Lucas kind of calls himself a Buddhist Methodist. And, you know, so he's not really either one thing, but Star Wars is Buddhist Methodism. You know, it's not either or. And so I do appreciate that part of it. But where Star Wars falls short is it's very Manichean. You know, it's just good and evil. You know, it's kind of even more so than Lord of the Rings would be. It's very you know, dark versus light, good versus evil. So it's hard to get political nuance. It's hard to get apply it to our world, because you end up seeing, you know, Trump is Darth Sidious, or Hitler Hillary is Darth Sidious. So it's either, you know, it's Hitler or it's the savior, it's Satan, or it's the Messiah, you know. So it's just very Manichean. And then the problem with Star Trek is Roddenberry was a utopian progressive, you know, like he had this belief that the UN could become this, you know, wonderful thing. But I mean, really, that's just Empire by another name. Yeah. And, you know, I will say this for Discovery, the new one, they do explore that to some degree. What I appreciate about Serenity is it takes that Empire motif and comes at it from the perspective of the rebellion that's lost. And Malcolm Reynolds and his crew, I mean, they're basically, you know, Han Solo and the Millennium Falcon, and how a smuggler makes it in this world in which the Empire has won. It's not as bad. It's not as cartoonishly bad as the Empire. It's more like our government. The Republic is a lot like our government. It's what the Federation of Planets in Star Trek is, actually. But we're getting to see what the Federation of Planets in Star Trek, its ugly side, And it's not all good. And, you know, every now and then Star Trek will get into that, but it is this utopian sort of like, oh, we're all great. And we're, you know, we're going to, you know, make the world, the universe a better place.
Yeah. It's government by committee and, or, you know, by universality. And what I think what you're saying, what I agree with is not, I think what you're saying, what I hear you saying is that Star Trek had this real like logical sort of, what is it? Political, highbrow political aspect to it. Star Wars had a very mystic feel to it, mystic religious. But to me, and I think this is what you're saying, and I totally agree with it, is Serenity and Firefly had such a practical, mechanic, political aspect to it. Just a real down-to-earth, regular Joe political aspect.
Yes. And it gets at it just gets at a real world application for the individual that, you know, you can't be part of Star Trek unless you're on the team, you know, unless you have signed off to become a member of the Republic. And again,
you got to be clean, you got to be meticulous, and yes.
And you have to follow all the rules. You have to become a part of the Academy. You know, it's the UN has become, the Republic has become the Empire. Now, again, it's not a cartoonishly bad empire. It's not a fascist state like, you know, the Dark Side Empire or you know, the Third Reich or something like that. But it is a lot like what, you know, the regimes that we have in power today. I mean, so anyway, it gets at something, and especially Serenity for me. Now, there's moments in all the others. I'm sorry, I just got a strike. There's moments in all the other. I don't know. I just totally lost my train of thought. What in the world just happened?
All the others.
Yeah. So I mean, what we're going to look at here today is 3 clips from. 2 of them are from Serenity, and one of them is something that it just connected some dots in my mind that I've had a hard time trying to figure out. This utopian ideal, who do you blame for it? And right now, a lot of people in the libertarian circles, the alt-right, the classical liberal, they want to blame cultural Marxists. They want to blame the progressive Democrats. But I was just listening to this book by Patrick Newman, and it's called The Progressive Era, and it's by Murray Rothbard. It's a collection of his essays about the progressive era. Again, libertarian thinking. You can find this on Mises.org. Again, a libertarian group. But what I found in this, I was listening to it on audio, and it was shocking to me when they made this little revelation about where this utopian ideology that we've kind of inherited in this last 100 years, where it actually came from. It didn't come from left liberals or the progressive Democrats. It actually came from the Republicans, and they were Christian pietists who wanted to use the government to do blue laws, you know, prohibition, all these, use the public education system as a means for indoctrinating children into a Christian view of the world. That shocked me. I mean, I knew that there have been Christians that have had this sort of mindset, and you know, I mean, we've experienced it with the Christian Coalition, you know, focus on the family, these sorts of things, but they weren't quite as overt in their attempts to do what these people did. Like they didn't necessarily get to the point of prohibition, you know, and that started with Christians. And so I think there's a danger for any people that come from a libertarian standpoint, which Malcolm Reynolds is a libertarian. You know, I mean, I know Joss Whedon doesn't really like libertarians. There's part of him that doesn't probably like Malcolm Reynolds, but Malcolm Reynolds is almost an anarchist.
Oh, for sure.
And you know, so there is a tendency and there's a temptation for the anarchist or the libertarian to kind of side with these conservative elements because you know, the conservative seems to be like, we're all frustrated with the same, you know, progressive sort of cultural Marxist speech code, safe spaces, all these kind of things. But there's a danger you go too far and you give too much power to this group. This group still exists that wants to use the state as a vehicle to change people and to use state force to make people better. You know, so I mean, you think about it, there's fear on the left and the progressive Democrats that you're going to get Pence praying the gay away, right? Like he's gonna force people to change out of their homosexual lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So there is that danger on both sides of the coin, and what we get with Serenity is this scene. And so we're going to watch the scene that shows where the PACs came from, which was an actual science fiction version of, you could say, praying the gay away. In this case, it's praying the rage away, praying the anger away. They've actually found a way to scientifically alter people's, biological makeup so that they don't have to do this, deal with that. But there are repercussions for that, and we experience it. So I wanted to listen to these 3 things here. If I share my screen, will it also share the audio?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here, I'll go ahead and do that. All right, here we go. Are you seeing it?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So this is a scene from Serenity. This is spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. All right.
Oh, I actually don't hear any sound.
No. Let's see. Can I?
What if you take your pull your headphones out?
Oh man, that won't be any good. Let me see if I can go over to control room.
Would this be better to do on what is that one you did to Twitch? Is the interface better for this kind of thing?
I don't know. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry, I guess we'll just cut this out.
Oh yeah.
Screen share. The stereo mix in your sound. So this says that I'm on you stereo mix in your sound settings under recording devices, but it should only be activated when you want to use. Okay, hold on. Let's see.
I mean, if worse comes to worse, I can just put it in post.
Okay, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
I'm not too worried about it. My freaking video won't work. I don't know what's going on.
Well, do you just want to watch it together and then we can refresh our memories?
Yeah.
All right.
So what is the clip called?
Here, I'll well, I mean, okay, yeah.
Because I can't hear. I have to watch on my side.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'll just yeah. Okay, here's the link to the first one. Here's the link to the second one.
Now this is what's her name who plays River?
I don't know.
Oh yeah, Summer Glau.
Summer Glau, yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
All right, shall we?
Let me see the second one. I remember that one. Now let me go to the second one really quick.
Okay, now the second one is one you haven't seen yet. It's
Oh,
just I just uploaded it, and so it's talking about the formation of this pietist group.
it's you. It's
Yeah,
a.
I just uploaded it. It's just
Oh, should I watch it?
yeah, definitely.
Okay. Wait, I've got okay. So I've got. There's 3 here. Which one? All 3?
Yeah, I put all 3 links
Okay.
up. So I mean,
So I watch all 3.
well, I don't know. I mean,
What?
I mean, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
Just to kind of jog our memory, I was thinking.
Yeah. Mm. This is the group you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let me watch that last one now. Oh man, that's such a good scene. I do not hold to that. I ain't a misbehave. Yes. Ah man. Okay. So can you just give a summary of each, and I'll like cut those into after the
Right.
clips.
So maybe what you could do is just take, if you want to just cut like the highlights of each one, maybe, so it's not like 8 minutes long or something like that.
Yeah,
Well, I don't know. I don't know what you think. Whatever works for you, but I think the key words, for her speech, I think the key words involved like we meant the best, and we kind of just summarizing that they tried to weed out aggression, but it worked. People stopped breathing, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
We meant it for the best. And then for the second part, in that video, I think the important thing is they believed in order for Jesus to return,
Everything had to be perfect.
they must first bring about 1,000-year kingdom of God.
Ooh.
And so there's just that part in there in which, yeah, it's like, and eradicate sin. And then when Mao, he'll say, these people want to make people better, something like
do
that.
It again. Yeah,
they're going to do it again somewhere. They're going to do it again. They're going to make people better. Yeah, I think that's kind of the idea.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So after watching those 3 clips, what I take away is like a just a very practical and visual and digestible idea of the road to hell is paved, or the road to hell is paved by good intentions, right?
That's exactly right. I mean, we're talking, it's, I don't know, we're so conditioned to think of, and this is why I do think Serenity is better in a deeper, more practically applicable level than Star Wars, because Star Wars, evil looks like evil. Darth Vader looks evil. He is evil. The Emperor looks evil. He is evil. When in reality, it is just like you said, where people can have the best of intentions. They're trying to make everything better, but behind that person who's trying to make everything better and make other people better, there is an operative who kills children. It's like, and Malcolm Reynolds says to the operative, "I don't kill children." He says, "I do. I'm a monster." So in order to usher in that utopia, you have to have a monster behind you that you act like isn't there, And the problem with that is, on the opposite, there is an equal and opposite monster that's going to raise up on the other side. When you have a monster at your back, forcing people to get in line, the people who don't want to get in line, something else is going to rise up behind them, and it's going to look like Reavers. It's going to be absolutely a hell you can't imagine. And so we watched Nosedive this week, which was an episode of the Black Mirror that was recommended by a Twitch viewer, and that episode is just, it's almost at this point not even science fiction. It's basically, there's this universal app that looks kind of like Instagram that everyone uses, and every interaction you have, you're rating somebody. You're like, 5-star this person, and you swipe your review of the person.
Right.
And
that actually, I think that is or was an app in production.
Well, and I mean, you kind of do that with Uber, right? And there's these moments that they're not even, at this point, they're not sci-fi or satire. It's actually real. It's just reporting what's happening. Like, she rates the guy good and he rates her bad as a customer, So that episode is talking about, with speech, what a lot of what we're talking about here. And again, I feel like on the alt-right, the conservative side, the classical liberal side, there is this tendency to think only of the neo-Puritan cultural Marxist, side, the progressive Democrat with, the speech codes and stuff like that. So they'll watch that episode of Nosedive and think of that. They'll think of, that, well, you have to use the proper pronoun. You have to have certain speech codes. And so I think it's easy for a progressive Democrat to watch that episode and get, maybe get a little flustered thinking, oh, the alt-right, and their commentary. But it's not just that side that has been guilty of this in the past. Like, right. I mean, just 20 years ago, like when I was growing up, it was Christians who were doing all the speech code stuff. Yeah. You can't say this word. You can't say, I mean, you can't have that conversation. You can't watch that movie. You can't drink that drink. So, this danger is across the board. And so in Serenity, it's kind of hard to tell who Joss Whedon is actually pointing out. Like, is he pointing out, this, it just seems like a powerful parliament, but what is their ideological backing? They're trying to remove aggression from the fabric of humankind. But when you do that, when you start tinkering with people, I mean,
well, the key word in this is progressive. Right. The progressive on the right, the progressive on the left, both of them want to bring us into some new utopian idea of society that I reject. I embrace any kind of traditionalist sentiment in the left and in the right, where we want to hold on to values, you know,
right?
Whether that be protecting the innocent and poor, or whether that be protecting values, you know, traditional family values.
Right. So, you know, the temptation for the right is religion and family, and the temptation for the left is justice and equality, you know. So like, but here's the unifying problem is that it's not that you believe in those things, but you're using the government and taxpayer money, and let's just take taxpayer money out of it, a feudal system, because that's what this basically ends up becoming. The king gets your first fruits, and then, you know, and you don't have any say how those first fruits are spent. Like, so what's the difference between what we're living in right now and what happened 500, 600, 700 years ago, in which the king gets some of your output and decides how it's going to be spent? Like, well, and whether or not I mean, just because we've split the king up into 1,000 component parts, but it's still the king. We've just split him up into 1,000 different parts.
You know, I had a counselor once. He was addictions. He taught addictions, and he said the worst drug is the one that you don't realize. You know, is the insidious, you know, creep of destruction to your life. And and he was talking about marijuana. He's talking about some of these, you know, other. He's even talking about caffeine and stuff like that.
Absolutely, yeah.
But where I was going with that is the difference between 500 years ago, whatever, and now is back then it was vulgar, it was obvious, it was terrible, right? It was it was nasty, but now it's slick, it's beautiful, you know, it's insidious, and
yeah, it's still a benevolent dictatorship. You know, I mean, and here's the thing that we tend to forget as libertarians, or as, you know, Democrats, whichever side you're on these things. There were benevolent dictators in every country. There were benevolent chiefs. There were good, you know, there were good leaders who didn't just do everything terrible. You know, they weren't just some Satan that exploited everyone. But so, you know, what I don't understand is this idea that just because we've broken that dictatorship up into all these component parts, that necessarily makes us more free, when we don't have say over, you know, what's going on behind closed doors in the CIA, experiments that we don't know about. You know, there's stuff that we can't see. You know, the really Serenity is a celebration of journalism. You know, I mean, that's what it is. It's breaking a story. Yeah. They are citizen journalists who break a story that has been hushed up. And so in that way, it's a lot like All the President's Men. But Woodward and Bernstein breaking the story on Nixon. But there's so many stories now in which the press has become complicit and hiding, you know, and they're not really doing this digging through the muck to find out. Well, maybe digging through the muck is the wrong word. Like you said, it's more like getting past the propaganda. You know, and it's very difficult to do this because it's all so pretty. Everything, you know, we live in a makeup culture.
And comfortable. I think the key word that just came to me is very comfortable. It gives us a lot of what, whereas 500 years ago, it was painful. You know, there was a lot of pain, and let's be honest, there was a lot less, you know, practical freedom. You know,
definitely true.
And there was much more strain on the human body and life, but yeah, it's a lot more comfortable now, and that's what I think Serenity really shows poignantly is, they, you know, a lot of them they go around saying a lot of these people look like they're comfortable, like they fell asleep or something.
Exactly. Like that. And that's why to me it's such a powerful myth, because, you know, I'd love for us one day to talk about Brave New World. You know, that's probably my favorite sci-fi of all time. And this is getting at the Pax is basically like a mixture of Soma in the Brave New World and something else. Like it actually just, yes, it makes you feel comfortable. If that's not a perfect metaphor for what has happened, it doesn't matter where you are in the political spectrum. We're all very comfortable. You know, we in the West, we have air conditioning, we have heating. we don't have to break a sweat from dawn to dusk, you know.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's been like below zero here in Chicago, and I barely notice because I go from my house to my car to the building to my car to the house again.
You want to talk about a literal bubble. It's the way that we live in the West. You know, we talk about economic bubbles. Well, we have comfort bubbles that just shield us from the reality of pain. So, you know, I really think Serenity, with the scene in which Malcolm Reynolds decides to go to war, he has to go through hell, basically, in order to find the truth. We have to go through hell. And the only way we're going to, and it's really not an action movie in that sense. Again, it is an uncovering. It's reverse redacting what the Parliament has done. You know, it's uncovering, smoking gun, whistleblowing, what has been done to just kind of make this comfortable world. The only way we get through that is not by storming the gates of hell with a cannon, you know, or with violence, but with revealing the truth, you know. And the truth is, the government has, and special interest groups have been complicit in this, you know, this unholy alliance in which they try to force people to be better, you know, whether it be better in speech, you know. I mean, it's frustrating to me that Christians were the ones behind the public education system, and everyone is just such a believer in public education. You know, my kids are in school now, and I'm teaching at a school, and I'm seeing all the limitations. And you know, I'm hoping that the internet can help us find another way to do this in this next 20, 30 years, that we're no longer dependent on the state. Because here's the problem with being dependent on the state. You are not autonomous anymore. And you start to see how you're just manufacturing. It's like that scene in Pink Floyd's The Wall, where people are on a conveyor belt, just being, you know, manufactured, basically. That we're just cogs in the machine, you know, we're just to be subservient, malleable voices in corporations, or not voices, but just worker drones in corporations and in the state or in the church, you know, whatever, you're just a drone in whatever one of those three things that you pick, you know.
Now, I don't want to be a Luddite, but I'd urge caution as to putting our hope in the internet, as I believe it's going to be largely controlled by government. You know, this. Well,
I don't know. I still think it's free enough at this point. You know, I think one of my goals in 2018 is to start untethering myself to centralizing mechanisms. So I am tethered to Adobe. I'm tethered to Microsoft. I'm tethered to Facebook and Twitter, and to Google. I want to untether myself. I want to go to Linux. I want to go to Tor. You know, I want to be able to have, eventually, you know, 2018 is probably not going to happen, but eventually have my own server, be able to connect peer to peer, you know, without anybody else. Because, you know, there is this misconception. I didn't even know this, but Tim Berners-Lee ushered in the innovation of the World Wide Web. Well, that's not all the internet is. A lot of people think the internet is Facebook. You know, a lot of people think the internet is an app. A lot of people think the internet is Google, but that's like, you know, a corporation set up on top of a protocol, set up on top of another protocol, set up on top of another protocol. The internet is the capacity for anyone to connect peer to peer without even the World Wide Web intermediating. You know, you don't even have to go to Tim Berners-Lee's innovation in order to use the internet. So I think the more that we can decentralize, it's like the character in Serenity says, no one stops the signal, Mal. Like, we're in a world where one person sending out a signal, like that guy, was more powerful than Parliament. You know, he created his own little server there, and, you know, he's like, the signal goes everywhere, and I go everywhere. You know, so there is an opportunity. It's not too late for us to take back our internet, and, you know, it's not taking back your internet. It's not going to happen because you hashtag save the internet, hashtag net neutrality, petition the FCC to be your middleman. Like, you really want the FCC, the parliament operative, to be on your side. Like, no, you need to find a way to connect peer to peer. You need to make your own server. You need to get out of this dependence, because when you're dependent, then you're giving more power. You're ceding more power to the king. You're ceding more power to the republic or to the empire or to the Federation of Planets. So in order to be truly autonomous, you have to take some of this stuff back. And that means learning something. And that means like you said, experiencing pain, being willing to experience discomfort. And, if need be, and that's why that scene at the end is so great. I aim to misbehave. All of them, they came there for different reasons. They were mainly greedy. They were mainly wanting to get, have the government off their back, just take my life, take my land, but I'm still going to the sky. You're not going to take the sky from me. I'm going out to sea here, and where there are no borders, when there are no rules. And, but they decide to risk their lives. Even Jane, for crying out loud, even Jane decides to risk his life to get this truth out. And that's going to require pain, and that's the problem with autonomy, is it requires you standing on your own 2 feet, not being subsidized.
And I had a thought there, it escaped me, but the idea of going off the grid, like it is true that most of Firefly is about this tension in the whole group between going off the grid and helping people. Right. You can't go totally off the grid and still be a force of change and help.
Right.
And I think it shows that. And so Serenity is a perfect culmination of this struggle in this little group where they realize, all right, we're no longer at the edges, helping at the edges. We're going to the heart of it. And they bring the whole fight right down the throat. I thought that's still one of my favorite scenes of all time.
Me too, dude. Like when just the look on the operative's face when they come out of that ion cloud, just someone shoot. Like, I love that. Like that, honestly, that, and this is an ironic comparison, but that, and in How to Train Your Dragon, when the Night Fury versus the Lumbering Dragon, like that to me is the metaphor for our time, both of these scenes, because the state, the bureaucracy, the corporation, they are lumbering, they are not nimble, and Serenity isn't even firing a thing. They're just navigating. They are dancing through this crossfire, and it's just such a brilliant metaphor. Because the chickens are coming home to roost, baby. Like the hell that you created is going to come and destroy you. So,
well, let's talk about that really quick. Let's talk about the Reavers.
Yeah.
Because it is interesting. You and I have talked before about the beauty of such gross, to me, such unappealing memes such as Pink Guy and, some of these YouTubers.
He's retired. He's retired, by the way.
So Pink Guy, he had to.
Frank. Yeah,
no, Filthy Frank isn't necessarily.
No, he did. Yeah,
he did. Okay.
Yeah, he made an official statement on his Twitter that Filthy Frank, Pink Guy, all the other characters in that universe, Joji is officially quitting comedy. So,
well, but I think it's because I read somewhere that he had some kind of because of all these things he would do, it would really put a strain on his esophagus. And
because he screamed a lot. Well, in his Filthy Frank voice, I'm sure even doing that thing, was messing his throat up. So he's officially done, and I wish him all the best, because I think he's.
Have you ever heard any of his music? His real music, like it's called Joji.
Yeah. Well, I've heard him as Pink Guy, the Pink Season or whatever it was called. He released. So I listened to some of that, and
he has a real band called Joji, I think.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't heard his new. Yeah, I needed to check that, because the Pink Guy stuff was extremely crass.
But okay, so with the extremely crass, I do believe that when you talk about there will be Reavers, created. That is what I'm seeing. You see people like the Pauls, right? Yeah. Logan Paul, so that's not as I mean, it's still
not
repulsive. It's not as crass,
right.
but it's, I don't know. I think a lot of people would say it's still very crass, but it's not
crass
as
on a social level, crass on
right.
a just public decency level. Like,
Yes.
I mean, what he did with the Japanese fort, in a way, I think that will kind of go down as one of the most interesting things of, well, did it happen this year? Yeah, we started 2018 on a bang.
Yeah.
With that stupid thing, but
yeah. I think what all this real comfortable, helpful Google Nation stuff is creating, it's creating people that that are getting attention because they're just raw. And
well, a great example of that, and this is why Joji and iDubbbz and Max Mofo have all kind of drifted towards each other, because they're all in the same vein. Like, I don't think any of them are necessarily alt-right. Maybe Max Mofo is, but Joji is not. I think he's much more on the liberal, progressive Democrat kind of side. But when you listen to him, he's just like as offensive to them as he is to anyone else. And it's just this frustration with being told you can't say these things. And so iDubbbz, he says words that would drive a progressive Democrat nuts. Yeah. And then How To Basic. I think How To Basic is again, and all these people formed on their own. Like, they didn't come together ahead of time and say, hey, we're gonna get big, and we're gonna do it by exploiting this frustration felt by teenagers about being told what to say. So like How To Basic, it's just a middle finger to the tutorial video. When you watch it, it is just this angst that's just like, I'm just so tired of this sort of prefab, what do you call it? Not just tutorial videos or haul videos and makeup videos and beauty videos and just all this just nice, neat, everything. He's just gonna throw an egg on it and pee on it, So yeah, I think Joji had an interview. It was really interesting. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but it was the Needle Drop, the internet's biggest video or music nerd. He's a great, if you're into listening to music, does some great reviews. They did an interview, and Joji said one of his biggest inspirations on the internet was Newgrounds. And Newgrounds is just, it's just, so much of it's despicable. Whether you're a conservative.
What is Newgrounds? Help me. I don't know.
So it was an animation sort of website. Like, it was a place almost like a message boards kind of structure, I guess, when you could make your own animations. And there was a lot of interactive sort of flash-based cartoons and stuff like that. And this stuff was softcore sometimes, pseudo-pornographic, very extremely violent and gross and just distasteful. And Joji loved this. And again, it was something that would offend the left and right equally. Like, you would have Christian conservatives scandalized, and you would have progressive Democrats scandalized. And so it does remind me, spoiler again, the end of this episode of Black Room season 3, it's got Bryce Dallas Howard in it. It's called Nosedive. At the end of it, it just ends. She ends up in a jail cell, and in this other jail cell next to her is this guy, and they just start cussing each other out, because the speech codes dominate your life, not because of political correctness, but because everyone is trying to get a good rating on this app. So they let loose this flurry of profanity, and it just seems so gratifying. Like, you're just like, the FU has taken on a whole new meaning. It's actually become I love you. Like, what they're actually saying there is, I love you and I respect your ability to tell me to F off. Like, that's what it's saying. Like, it's interesting. Yeah. And that's what Newgrounds is. That's what iDubbbz, Filthy Frank, Max Mofo, and How To Basic are. They're basically just like, no, we have to be able to talk.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Sorry. Oh, were you getting that feedback?
Yeah.
My bad.
That's all right. I should have said something. That's all right. It was pretty quiet. But so the question is, for me and you, well, I don't know. Let's say, I can only speak for myself. Question to you, for me is, how do I engage? How can I be, I guess, how can we be Mal and not be the Reavers? You know, like I do respect the Reavers role. I do respect these crass uh, YouTubers, these crass memers. I do respect their role, but I don't necessarily want to join into that. I don't want to join into that.
Yeah, so that is a good question. So there's a couple things here. First of all, I think the Reavers, they're cultural Reavers. They're not literal Reavers, and that's the important thing. So I think we want to draw attention to the cultural Reavers who are doing God's work, whether you believe in God or not. But like, and that's become a meme on Twitch. Everyone says God bless now. Like, 90% of them don't believe in God, but it's become like this thing. Like it is just more of a Godspeed. You know, it's just wishing each other well. So these people are doing God's work, and by tearing down this hypocrisy, this fakeness that masquerades as righteousness, you know. And so cultural Reavers, like, we want to find those, and that's why I loved H3 for the longest time. Like, they were just cathartic, you know, watching H3 just destroy some of this just fakeness on YouTube. You know, YouTube has just become the most fake thing ever. And it's amazing that 2017 was the rise of H3 on YouTube, but 2017 also proved to be the worst YouTube rewind ever. Yeah. And, you know, it's just so fake, so plastic, so artificial, so hypocritical. So I think we want to kind of be champions of those people that are the cultural Reavers, to a degree, but, you know, hold them, you know, accountable too. You know, you don't want to just destroy, but because the great thing about those cultural Reavers is they're making something. iDubbbz makes something. Max Mofo makes something. I mean, and Filthy Frank makes something. And Joji, you know, he's moving on to something else. So we want to kind of support them as they do new stuff and see where their brains take us. The other thing is, we have to be careful for all of us, whether our values are more democratic, progressive, or conservative or libertarian. And I think all three of those are different things. I think there's too many alt-right that are assuming that they are libertarians, but no, you're actually kind of conservative. So in a different way, you know, whatever, you know, like, how do you even define some of this stuff? It's so confusing because we end up agreeing on certain things, but disagreeing on other things. But for me, I'm come from a conservative background. I'm more conservative morally. Like, I've quit watching porn. So, you know, 10 years or so porn free, and I hate porn. I think it's one of the most debilitating things. However, I do not think it should ever be prohibited, ever. Like, I think that is one of the things that, if we make that step, that we will be playing the part of the parliament, forcing the PACs on people. Like, I want to
define prohibited, though. Define prohibited.
Prohibited socially or prohibited by law. Like, either one of those things. Like, I do not want, because in Nosedive, it's not prohibited by law to say bad things and say the F word, but the app prohibits it. Interpersonal, you know, culturally, it's prohibited. And so I think even that, just saying, you know, if someone can't be honest that they watch porn, then I think we're in a dangerous place. I don't want people to be socially nudged. You know, I want people to make that choice themselves intrinsically. I want to try to persuade them why I've come to this conclusion. Do I think porn will ever go away? You know, I don't know. But we can't. If you try to make it happen, then you have a utopian ideal. You know, that's just dangerous.
Parenthetically, one of the biggest losers in this whole net neutrality thing was porn.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they take up so much bandwidth with their streaming videos. Pornhub and some of these others, like, they were a huge vocal. They're vocally against the. Well, I guess, you know, everybody was sort of in the limelight was against the net neutrality, but it's because, you know, net neutrality is about bandwidth. You're able to, you have to pay more for more bandwidth.
Right. Yeah. You know, we had this debate one time. Like, I was teaching a public school, and we got in this little debate with some of the teachers who were a little more progressive. And so one of the guys was saying that nudity should be on, like, it should be allowed to be on public television, like, you know, the main four. And to me, I was like, it was almost like saying, well, the government should provide a safe space for not only water, like let's have a public works with water, but you need to have beer on tap as well. We should all get beer on tap at our house. Like there's no like petitioning the FCC to have your porn bandwidth not screwed up. Like that to me is the height of comfort subsidy. Like if you like porn that much, again, make your own server. Why do you always have to depend on somebody else to do this stuff for you? Like, so I think there is this notion, because I like something, because I want to mainline binge watch Netflix, that I should be able to do that at the lowest cost possible, and the government should make that easy for me. What? No, you make it easy for you. Like study code. Like you want to make it like Netflix isn't your god. Netflix isn't the government. Like they're a company. Like stand on your own two legs, for crying out loud. So there is this notion that just because it's just this entitled attitude that what I like is my freedom. No. So,
but by the same token, I think people should be able to petition for what they like. I don't want to.
Yeah, but
I don't want to prohibit.
Yeah, but by petitioning,
I don't want to prohibit them.
Well, they can't. Yeah, I mean, if they want to stay locked to the king, okay, but I mean, but quit calling it something else. What you're saying is your king has to provide for you, and instead of just providing you safety and security, he should also provide you air conditioning and porn and food and drugs. Like, I mean, like this is paternalism to a new level. Like, oh yeah, fight back against the patriarchy, but not the paternalism, apparently. Like that's just going to provide you with everything. That is not empowering. That's not autonomous.
Right. That's
not free. So again, like a lot of this is going to be uncomfortable when we try to figure out how to untether ourselves from the things that make our lives easier.
Yeah.
And so many corporations are involved in that. But again, we've done it before. We untethered ourselves from AOL. Like I think we can untether ourselves from Facebook and from Netflix.
Oh, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But I guess I really want to pin you down on this. Because it kind of sounds when I ask you about the Reavers, about the memers, about the iDubbbz and them, what I kind of heard you say is we support them. It sounded like we need to consume. As consumers, we need to watch. What do we do as creators?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think. Yeah, I think we want to find a third path between what maybe knee-jerk exploitative, like you could almost think of a lot of these reactions as almost like an exploitation of the frustration. Some middle path between that and total mainstream acceptable, vanilla entertainment. And so I think that's where, for me, reading Philip K. Dick is more enlightening or challenging than just constantly consuming Star Wars. It's why. So I mean, I think we need to continue to challenge ourselves, just not to get sucked into the fandom culture on the one side, which you could almost think is more conservative, because it's just easy. It's easy to consume. It's easy to understand. And then on the other side, like thinking that you're countercultural because you like something that is, Reaver territory. So like finding some way to tell a new myth that can get some of these ideas through without being an a-hole, and without, and I think that was the genius of Star Wars, is that he was able to communicate some interesting philosophy to people all over the world. Genius of Star Trek, get some real, Star Trek, especially Next Generation, really get some great sci-fi science things in there. There's just, it's a love of science and just some kind of nerdy stuff, not just geeky stuff, like nerdy, or I don't know, however you define those two things, but the really technical stuff that not psychobabble, but technobabble, that's actually rooted in some reality, physics and math. So
logic.
Yeah. So that all of them have had their place, but I think it's time for some new sci-fi, some new fiction that we try to tread the line between mainstream and countercultural, that find ways to communicate that to broader people.
I think what I hear you saying is we have to find a third way. But I think we need to derive courage from the Reavers, right?
Right.
Courage, the fact that, that I'm not going to go that far, but that far exists, right? And
right.
it's going to drag me a little bit further that way. But still maintain decency and beauty.
Right. And so it's just trying to find out, like, why are these people so mad, so frustrated, so depressed? And I'm not talking necessarily about iDubbbz here. I'm talking more about like the accelerationists. So they're this group that they're into this music called crypt. I'm still trying to figure out something. You listen to this music, it's some of the most depressing thing you can possibly imagine. It's like if you distilled Radiohead through the distillation of or if you brewed Radiohead in the distillation of Lovecraft, like you end up with this stuff, like musically. And then they're writing, it's these weird little poems on Twitter that's just, oh man, it just feels like this nihilism, but there's something in them. There's this frustration with just some of this hypocrisy and mainstream, I don't know, geek culture and stuff like that. They're getting at something. And again, like finding a way to maybe take some of those ideas and say, well, what can we make? What can we make to get out of this, this dystopian environment? Like, we're not trying to make a utopia here that creates another dystopia, but what can we learn, from the frustrations that you guys are having with this? So, just not to run the other way. I think that's happened so often is, on the left, they just run away from 4chan. And on the right, we run away from Newgrounds, so like we just have to find out why these frustrations are there and people are resorting to, cultural and religious nationalism on one hand, or this, justice, progressive culture on the other. Yeah.
All right. So we need to dig into this stuff. And I think the thing that will keep us on level and decency and constructive will be discussion like this.
Yeah. And we do need to have more broad discussions with people we disagree with. But I think it's almost like we need to work our way there because, if I were to have a discussion with Joss Whedon tomorrow, I mean, Joss is so like vehement on Twitter right now. Like you can't have a conversation with him, just like you couldn't. Well, I mean, you probably can't have a conversation with me right now either. I'm still not out of my own frustrated woods, but I feel like we've got to get to the point where we can come to the table, feminist frequency and a red pill on actually being able to have a discussion without throwing something at each other. But we need to get there. And so I think, part of this is, and do it without trying to leverage the law to make us do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. and like you said, without do it organically and naturally without forcing each other to do it.
Right.
Even outside of the law, like not cowtailing each other to do it.
Right. Yeah. Just trying to find ways to dignify one another as a human being. Because I think, I think Anita Sarkeesian is a human being. I think Joss Whedon is a human being. And Joss has made my favorite movie, I mean, we have at least that much in common. I would almost just love to sit down and watch it with him.
Yeah.
Because my favorite commentary on audiovisual content of all time is Joss Whedon talking about objects in space, the final episode of Serenity, which, it's hard for me.
A Firefly.
Yeah, a Firefly. It's hard for me. I mean, I might like that as much as Serenity. I don't know. Like that one is just so deep to me. It has so much meaning to me. It's a perfect little piece of art for me. I would love just to sit down and hear Joss Whedon talk about Serenity from beginning to end, just like he talked about. And actually he did, but it would be kind of cool to do it live.
That'd be awesome.
We're doing it live.
All right. Well, we're not doing it live. Editing to this.
Yeah, this is probably the messiest one yet. Sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. That's what it's about. Getting in the mess, doing it, just doing it. And so we got to wrap things up. I want to give you the opportunity to talk a little bit about what you and Melissa are doing.
Okay, yeah, we are starting a new Twitch stream. So right now it looks like Sunday, 8 a.m. Central Standard Time. We are calling it, I don't know, the Surfing Violence stream, Building a Better Stream. We're basically having a discussion, should be about an hour and a half to 2 hours. Eventually, we'd like to have some live guests. We are talking about 3 different topics: creative, cross-cultural, and constructive. The creative side, we just discuss kind of like what we do here on Reverse Redaction, a little more broad and not, talk about music, talk about film. And then the cross-cultural section, we talk about India connections. Our love of India, or India nerdness. So we do hope to have some Indian guests on eventually. And then in the final section, it's Building a Better Me. And that ties into just the whole function of our online presence this year, which is about it's this old Christian punk band called Dogwood. They had this line, which is my favorite, and I reference it all the time. Ends this one song called Building a Better Me. It says, "My soul went searching for a cause, but came back empty-handed. In the emptiness you see, I'm building a better me." And I think that kind of ties into this whole idea, again, from a Christian punk band, that to me is that's deep on a lot of levels, and it's what we're exactly talking about here. The notion that instead of petitioning the government to build a better world, I'm going to start with myself. Even Gandhi said that same thing, that build up, and I can't remember the exact term, but it's basically like you got to fix yourself before you can fix anyone else. That Jesus said the same thing about, don't look at your brother and the speck in your brother's eye when you got a log in your own. Whatever evil we carry within our own self, when we make a system or a movement or a company or a government, that thing is going to multiply times 1,000, and it's going to turn into Reavers. It's going to turn into a monster behind you, and it's going to turn Reavers on your opponents. So we want to make 2018 about building a better us, and really trying to be holistic in this battle. For me, it's against depression, but it's also just about finding our place in the world and trying to actually add constructive, non-zero sum value to this world, instead of this strip mining sort of, just winner take all mentality. So those kind of the thoughts that we have on the show.
And there's there's a family component. One of my favorite shows of yours was the what was it, 2 minutes, 2 weeks?
Oh, 1 week and 1 minute. Yeah.
1 week, 1 minute, and it has that feel to it. I like that.
Yeah.
Except it's a lot longer.
Oh yeah, well yeah. For now, we're trying to work out the kinks. We don't have many viewers right now because it's so long, and it's just like true fans. But eventually, we want to kind of meld back in that life cast vlog sort of thing where we're getting more of our life. Like my daughter last night, she sang an Adele song at the talent show thing, and I was just absolutely blown away. So one of my projects this year is to try to actually get her sing in public. She absolutely stole the show, and it's not just a proud dad talking. Like, I am a cynical musician. Okay, so awesome. I was just absolutely blown away by my daughter.
Oh, that's great.
So really trying to just nurture talent wherever I see it, and curate good content, and whether they be reavers, cultural reavers on the one hand, or populists on the other. And that's the other thing. I think it's real easy for hipster contrarians. I was thinking about that word today. That's been my temptation for these past 10 years. I want to wean myself off of the hipster contrarian. I'm getting too old for this, so I need to be able to celebrate pop culture when I think it's good, and and not just be this hipster contrarian. So
good. All right. Well, next week we're going to look at something in pop culture then. Something
all right,
real
let's do
poppy.
All right. What are we doing?
I don't know, but we'll find something.
You wanted to do Taylor Swift, right?
Oh yeah. Let's do Taylor Swift.
All right, let's do Taylor Swift. What do I need to listen to this week?
Listen.
Hey, look at this. I was wondering what I was going to spend this on. So, so what do I need? I've never listened.
Whoa! Don't go that far.
Well, I don't have it. Oh, I already bought my Hipster Contrarian album for the year, and I've already have buyer's remorse about it. It's the soundtrack to Twin Peaks season 3, and without the visuals, that thing is absolutely abysmal. Okay, it's bad. I'm sorry, David Lynch, but man, you made me frustrated when I bought that. So I'll go the opposite. I'll do the equal and opposite sin by buying Taylor Swift. So what should I buy? What is the best Taylor
buy
Swift?
her new the best? I don't know. Red probably. I don't know. Actually, you know what you could do?
What?
You could actually cheat. You could still hold on to your Hipster Contrarian and buy the Ryan Adams remake of her album 89, I think it's called 1989 or something like that.
Okay.
Okay. So it's so
I'll get her new album and Ryan Adams. So all right, that's
right. Ryan Adams redoes all her 1989 album. It's actually one of her best. I think it's one of her best albums. Her new one's, I don't know, interesting. I mean, if we really want to dig in, we should probably dig into her new album. There's some parts that's so cringeworthy, but okay.
All right. Well, hey, I will plug 2 songs on the Hipster Contrarian songs for the Hipster Contrarian is out there. The Veils, Axolotl, my absolute favorite song right now. It is from Twin Peaks season 3. Like the music video. Oh man, it's dark. It's interesting. It's good stuff.
The Veil, Axolotl.
The Veils, Axolotl. And then
is that English?
Axolotl is an amphibian. It's this weird looking lizard looking guy that's got that. It's got that frilled. Gill. Yeah, that's an axolotl. Okay. So he says the first line of the song is "I'm glowing bright obsidian," and my son hears that and thinks he's saying obsidiate, and so he just goes around saying obsidiate. And then also. Eddie Vedder's, this was also in that soundtrack. Oh crap. It's Out of Sand. A nice little folksy thing. Kind of, yeah. This one, I listened to it this morning, and at first I was a little bit like Hipster Contrarian to the Hipster Contrarian, but I think I sided with the Hipster Contrarian of Eddie Vedder here. So that's good. Yeah, that was good.
Okay.
How many levels of Hipster Contrarian can be? Oh, I'm so hipster. I dislike this thing that another hipster likes, that another hipster likes, that another hipster likes or dislikes,
Well, I love the hipster Contrarian aspect where you like bring back stuff that was popular, like Eddie Vedder.
Oh, that dude, have I never showed you? Oh, one last thing since we got on this Hipster Contrarian kick. Hold on one second. I gotta show you this.
Okay.
So my buddy and I, we were actually driving to do a shoot, and shoot, I'll just send it to you. But we do these couple sketches where it's like, I'm so hipster, I drink cold coffee in the wintertime. And then the other guy's like, I'm so hipster, I drink hot beer in the morning. So it's just always this absurd, like
is it kind of like the You're So Gay, except sort of subverted?
I know, I don't know. The reason we did it, how was it? We were driving down the road, we were on 185, I want to say south of Atlanta, and there was some sign for beer. It looked like it said hot beer. And so,
ooh, hot beer.
Yeah. So we saw that. I was like, man, that's gotta be the most hipster thing I've ever heard of. It's not just room temperature beer. It's hot beer. And I was like, yeah. And so, and then we just got that one line. I'm so hipster that I drink, cold coffee in the wintertime. And I was like, no, I'm so hipster, I drink hot beer in the morning. And that from then we just wrote this whole list of these things, and they were just, getting more and more ridiculous until it's like, yeah. One of them is like, I'm so hipster, I use a rotary phone. And it's like, I'm so hipster, I conducted a seance to commune with the spirit of Alexander Graham Bell so I could use the first phone ever invented. So it's just, the hipster contrarian taken to the degree. But yeah, I mean, I still am pretty insufferable in that regard, just because I think many people will justifiably listen to our podcast about Star Wars and feel like that's where we were on that score.
Okay. Yeah, probably.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I gotta go. And hey, I was thinking, and outro, or not an outro, a farewell that we give you, a sign off. Well, it's more of a farewell. Get to work. There's a lot to build. We say that to each other.
Get to work. There's a lot to build. Make your own myth.
There we go.
All right.
Well, get to work. There's a lot to build. Make your own. What should it be like? One of us says like that's the response. Make your own myth.
Well, okay. Yeah.
Ooh. And then so like whoever starts it, the other person has to respond.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, I like that.
Get to work. There's a lot to build. Yes, I started it.
Make your own myth.